Sergio Pettis has had some unbelievable moments in his career. He is the current Bellator Bantamweight Champion and already has one title defense under his belt. But a few of Pettis' previous performances were underwhelming, and after bouncing between the flyweight and bantamweight divisions in the UFC, he left the world's premier MMA organization with a record of 9-5. So is Sergio Pettis a champion due to fortunate circumstances, or is his current success an accurate reflection of his skill set? Is Sergio SP Pettis a lucky challenger or championship caliber? I want to know what you guys think, so let me know in the comments section. Hello everyone, and welcome back to Mixed Martial Arts for another Focal Fighter video. Mixed Martial Arts is your #1 channel for content related to mixed martial arts and comic books. And now let's get started. Sergio Pettis began his martial arts training as a child. He's a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and a second-degree black belt in Taekwondo. Pettis had his first amateur MMA fight at the age of 15 in August 2009. His final amateur bout took place when Pettis was 16 years old in August 2010. During that year, Pettis accumulated an amateur record of 4-0 with 2 knockouts, 1 submission, and 1 decision. Sergio Pettis had his first professional fight on September 10, 2011 at the age of 18. The bout took place in the bantamweight division, and Sergio Pettis began his pro career with a bang. After going 3-0, Sergio Pettis made his flyweight debut and won the fight by unanimous decision. He returned to bantamweight in his next fight, where he scored a knockdown early and then secured a guillotine choke to win in the first round. Pettis won his next fight by unanimous decision to improve his record to 6-0. Then he returned to flyweight in his next fight and earned another unanimous decision victory. He earned a first-round knockout in the following fight that improved his record to 8-0.
Right hand lead from Dylan Penn.
And this win made some noise because he won the inaugural RFA Flyweight Championship at 19 years old. Pettis moved back up to bantamweight for his next fight and won the NAFC Bantamweight Championship by Kimura in the first round. And after the fight, Pettis only had one thing on his mind. His wish was granted as Pettis signed with the UFC just a few days later. At 20 years old, barely 2 years into his professional career, Pettis debuted in the UFC on November 16, 2013 at UFC 167. His fight took place in the bantamweight division against Will Campuzano. Sergio Pettis landed a nice flying knee in the first round, and his octagon debut was a good performance. Pettis won the fight by unanimous decision. He next faced Alex Caceres. Pettis had many good moments in this fight, like this head kick, but Alex Caceres did too. Caceres ended up securing a rear naked choke late in the third round that earned him the victory. It was the first loss of Sergio Pettis' young career, but he earned a Fight of the Night bonus for his effort. He held a professional record of 10-1 after this fight. Sergio Pettis returned against Yautsin Meza just a few months later. This fight needed all 3 rounds to render a decision, and the judges unanimously gave the victory to Sergio Pettis. He next fought Matt Hobar at UFC 181. Sergio earned his second Fight of the Night award with this performance, but this time he won the fight by unanimous decision. Pettis made the decision to return to flyweight for his next bout, and he was booked to face Ryan Benoit at UFC 185. Pettis lost his return to 125 by second round TKO. And Ryan Benoit had poor sportsmanship after the win as he kicked Pettis when the ref had already called the fight off. But Benoit went on to apologize after the fight, and as for Pettis, he remained at flyweight by facing the number 10 ranked contender Chris Carriasso at UFC 192. And Pettis had a good performance that resulted in him earning a unanimous decision win. It was his first victory in the UFC's flyweight division. Sergio Pettis returned at UFC 197 against Chris Kalidas. Pettis controlled the fight with strong moments on the feet and on the ground, which resulted in another unanimous decision win. Pettis faced John Moraga in his next fight. He demonstrated his developing skills again in this fight against the number 8 ranked flyweight contender. He included some takedowns in his performance, and his striking looked great too. Pettis controlled the fight until the final bell, where he won yet again by unanimous decision. Pettis was scheduled to face Henry Cejudo at UFC 211, but Cejudo pulled out just 3 days before the fight due to a hand injury. So with his impressive 6-2 record in the UFC, Pettis was selected to headline a fight night card opposite Brandon Moreno in Mexico City. Pettis had another strong outing in his main event slot against the future UFC flyweight champion. His striking skills were on display for all to see, and he landed some great techniques on Brandon Moreno. Pettis won the fight by unanimous decision. Now the number 4 ranked contender in the division, with an outstanding overall record of 16-2, Pettis was rebooked to face Henry Cejudo on the main card of UFC 218. Henry Cejudo had just started fighting in a karate stance with his previous fight against Wilson Reyes, and he implemented the same striking approach in this fight against Pettis. Yet Sergio Pettis had his moments on the feet and gave Henry Cejudo some trouble. So Cejudo went back to his roots and used his wrestling skills against Pettis to control the fight on the ground. It was clear that Pettis wasn't on the same level in the wrestling department as the wrestling Olympic gold medalist winner that is Henry Cejudo, and Cejudo won the fight by unanimous decision. Then Sergio Pettis fought Joseph Benavidez at UFC 225. Pettis had some good moments in this fight, but it seemed as though Benavidez would receive the decision victory. Yet the judge's decision was in favor of Sergio Pettis, which was controversial and even surprising for Pettis himself. Then Pettis returned against Jussier Formiga at UFC 229. Pettis wasn't able to get anything significant going on the feet, and Jussier Formiga employed a grappling-heavy tactic, perhaps after seeing Cejudo's success with this approach against Pettis. Formiga secured the unanimous decision win. It was at this point that Dana White was planning on eliminating the flyweight division from the UFC altogether and started cutting most flyweight fighters from the roster, except for a select few who were allowed to stay with the UFC provided they move up to the 135-pound bantamweight division. Pettis was one of these few flyweights that weren't cut by the UFC. He moved up to bantamweight to fight Rob Font. Font established his jab early in the fight and won all 3 rounds clearly. Font also had a few minutes of ground control in round 3, which helped Font cruise to a unanimous decision win. As it turned out though, the UFC didn't remove the flyweight division after all, and Pettis went back down to 125 to face Tyson Nam in the final fight of his UFC contract. Pettis implemented a strategic game plan that was mostly counter-heavy. It worked in his favor, and Pettis snapped his 2-fight losing streak with a unanimous decision win over Tyson Nam. After the fight, Pettis tested free agency and signed with Bellator, which doesn't have a flyweight division. But the weight cut to 125 was getting difficult for Pettis, and he felt comfortable with the idea of moving up to bantamweight. So he finished his UFC run as a top-ranked flyweight contender with a promotional record of 9-5 in the UFC. At 26 years old, Pettis held an overall record of 18-5 and made his Bellator debut against fellow promotional newcomer Alfred Kashakian on January 25, 2020. Pettis was looking great on the feet in this first round, and he eventually scored a big knockdown on Kashakian that nearly put him out. Pettis followed this up with hard ground and pound strikes before getting a tight guillotine choke that put Kashakian out cold. It was Pettis' first time getting a finish since 2013, and you can clearly see the excitement on his face after this performance. His Bellator debut was a big success. Pettis returned at Bellator 242 against Ricky Bandejas. Pettis did a great job of mixing up his offense in this fight. He got a bit of ground control time, but his striking was what won him the fight, and his leg kicks were highly effective. Pettis won the fight via unanimous decision. This fight earned Pettis a title shot against Bellator's bantamweight champion, Juan Archuleta. Pettis fought beautifully by getting the better of Archuleta in nearly every exchange. Pettis was precise with his strikes, he landed the harder punches, he was far more efficient with his movement, and he was quick to stand up whenever Archuleta got him down. Pettis won the fight by unanimous decision and became a champion of a major MMA organization for the first time in his career. Pettis used his post-fight interview to respectfully call out the current Rizin Bantamweight Champion and former Bellator Bantamweight Champion who vacated the title due to injuries, Kyoji Horiguchi. Pettis was booked to face Horiguchi at Bellator 272 in a highly anticipated fight. It was a dominant performance for Kyoji Horiguchi through 3 rounds, but Pettis never lost focus or the drive to win. And in the 4th round, he threw caution to the wind, which paid off as he earned the greatest highlight of his career. Sergio Pettis won the fight in extraordinary fashion and retained his Bellator Bantamweight title. But is Sergio Pettis a lucky challenger or championship caliber? Well, he holds a strong record of 22-5, and he's been successful in 2 top-tier promotions, the UFC and Bellator. Even though Sergio moved between the flyweight and bantamweight divisions during his time with the UFC, he still works his way up to becoming a top flyweight contender and had a few fights that were likely title eliminators. And ever since he moved into Bellator, Pettis has looked rejuvenated. He's had multiple dominant performances, and his killer instinct is also there, with 2 finishes in 4 Bellator fights, which comes after going nearly 6 years in the UFC with no finishes to show for it. When Pettis got his title shot against Juan Archuleta, he was certainly not just lucky, as he dominated the champion from start to finish. I could potentially see round 3 being scored in favor of Archuleta, but even that round could just as likely be in favor of Pettis too. Now, Pettis' fight against Horiguchi is a different situation altogether. Horiguchi was dominating Pettis, and I could see why people might think Pettis just scored a lucky knockout in that fight. But I'm going to tell you, Pettis was not just lucky. He's thrown this technique in previous fights, and he even threw 2 spinning back fists against Horiguchi in their fight before landing the knockout shot in round 4. But more importantly, Pettis never gave up in this fight and never lost his focus. He remained composed despite landing less than 10 strikes through the first 2 rounds. Pettis showed that he has matured over his career and won't give up when he faces hardship inside the cage. I am confident in saying that Sergio Pettis is a championship caliber martial artist and the rightful Bellator Bantamweight Champion. Still, things could get interesting with the killer's row of fighters preparing to get their shot at the title in Bellator's upcoming Bantamweight Grand Prix starting this year. But it's impressive to look at how far Sergio Pettis has come. He started his career as simply being the younger brother of Anthony Pettis. It was as if nobody could speak to or about Sergio without mentioning his brother Anthony. But now Sergio Pettis has embarked on his own unique journey in Bellator, and he's made a name for himself. It's tough to carve your own path when you're stuck in somebody else's shadow, as Sergio was stuck in Anthony's. But Sergio Pettis has grown a lot over his career. You can clearly see his improved confidence just by observing him in the cage his last few fights. Pettis has gone from doubting himself to being fearless. He was once just Anthony Pettis' little brother, but now the name Sergio Pettis has meaning on its own. He's gone from being a contender to a champion, and that lasts forever. What do you think of Sergio Pettis' career? Do you think he's a lucky challenger or championship caliber? Let me know in the comments section. I can't wait to read it. Follow the link in the description to my Twitter page and follow me on there for more frequent mixed martial arts updates. Hit the like button and subscribe to my channel for more of these focal fighter videos. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.